Hi, Rachel.
How you doing?
I am going very well. How about yourself?
Good. You know, I bought a new dress.
Yeah, it turns heads, I hear, and see. If they turn any further, the listeners out there will get whiplash. You don't want to give our yumlings whiplash.
No.
You don't want to give
lucky
them...
that this is audio only.
You don't want to give our yumlings the J.K. Simmons classic whiplash on DVD. Do you think that's what Sheridan was referring to?
No.
Are you sure? Then he was like, oh, if their heads turn any further, they'll sue you for Whiplash, the J.K. Simmons Miles Teller classic 2014 film, because we all know that Sheridan is a man of history. He loves history. He knows things from the past. Maybe he's just really into that movie. Maybe he could warn us if Damien Chazelle's film career is just going to be about a bunch of angry white guys who are really upset that their music careers haven't kicked off. But Rachel, how are you outside of giving us whiplash?
God fucking deal.
This is what it's like to live with me.
I already just can't.
You can't handle it?
I can't handle the degree.
Have you got whiplash?
I can't handle your yum yum. Your yum yum has given me whiplash.
Have I got YYE? I'm the YYE of the episode?
You fucking do.
Dude.
You've got YYE off the chain.
Before we get into the YYE, how about you inform us all about the podcast, Rachel, what we do here, who we are, what people should expect, or the whole, as they say, rigmarole.
God fucking damn it.
Who are they?
God
Great question, isn't it? Who are they?
Stop.
The truth is out there.
Stop.
The rigmarole truth is out there. Stop it, she's already dead.
Stop.
I haven't seen you break like this since Warren Keffer. And he isn't even in this fucking episode. Oh, but I wish he was. I would have liked to see that he was the guy running in the Underground Railroad. Now that would have been a fucking twist.
Fuck off.
Imagine that twist where Franklin goes, my Underground Railroad connection, blah, blah, blah. And then the guy walks out and it's Warren Keffer and Sheridan's like, who are you? It's like, oh, we've met, Captain. Have we?
I thought the message said for me to come alone.
It did.
Well, don't you think your presence might scare off the guy who's running this operation?
Some people may be thinking, Babylon 5 is not the origin of Yum Yum, and you are right. Babylon 5 failed to give us that. It gave us so many other things, but it did not give us the line Yum Yum. Star Trek Discovery did in the finale of Season 2 from Commander Nan-D, and Yum Yum was her response to a proposed murder.
Yeah. Wasn't it emotional? But we're not talking about Star Trek Discovery anymore.
No, we are talking about Babylon 5 in a spoiler-filled fashion.
Yeah, we're a rewatch
If you
podcast.
have not watched the show, go watch it.
Get out.
Get out.
Get
We
out.
don't want to spoil it for you. As Ryan pointed out, we are rewatching the show. We have watched it
Many a times.
many a time.
More than 5. Which is the recommended amount of watches from the show. It tells you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what it says. But we've watched it more times than that, and you have all been warned. Spoilers are abound. You know, one of the things I hear, Rachel, is some people say to us, why Yum Yum? We give the reason, and they say, that's a terrible reason. That line is bad. Well, you know what I say to those people? I don't want to name names of those people. Let's come up with a fictitious name. What's the name of an idiot? What's the name of a stupid person? I don't know, like Sally? or Sally, just Sally. Now listen here, Sallys and Stefans. We do not appreciate your hatred of Star Trek Discovery, because any bad mouthing of Yum Yum, that's hater talk, and we don't allow that here. I mean, we have our problems with Star Trek Discovery and even with Babylon 5, but if you come in here and say that Yum Yum is stupid, how dare you? That's our role to tell you it's stupid, okay? By giving it as our rating system and as our name and asking the question, who would have said Yum Yum in this episode of Babylon 5, I think, Rachel, is it fair to me to just have the blanket statement? It's Bester. Of course it's Bester. Yeah. Bester would have said it. Mm-hmm. He was this close. I saw he was this close, but if he said it, Walter Koenig's wig would have flown off if he said it, and that would have been very awkward for the character.
Perfect for him to say at breakfast.
Oh my god, yes, exactly right. Or after having just murdered a group of people, he would have licked his lips, flicked his toupee back and said yum yum. But unfortunately he did not, but we are going through Babylon 5. We're looking at a Season 2 episode. We are looking at Season 2, Episode 8.
A Race Through the Dark?
No, A Race Through Dark Places. And the synopsis, according to the DVD, because we are reading the DVD synopsis of each of these episodes.
That we assume were provided by JMS himself.
I've had a word with IMDb. I have actually spent time to send IMDb these synopses. And IMDb has routinely rejected them, saying that they could not verify the source that these are from the DVDs. And I think they can, but they just don't want to admit that they're from the DVDs because they can't handle the fact that the DVD writers of the synopsis did a better job than IMDb's ones ever could. They're ashamed of their own failings, because here is A Race to the Dark Places synopsis. Babylon 5 may be an underground railroad for unregistered telepaths to slip through dragnet of Psychor cop Bester, Walter Koenig. Meanwhile, I just want to say, they've used meanwhile, I think, in basically every summary of Season 2.
Almost all of them.
Meanwhile, Sheridan squabbles with Earth Central over rent fees levied against their quarters. Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. It's a Bester episode, meaning it's also a Psychor episode. It's a Talia episode. There's Sheridan dealing with Earth Central over money. Delenn is also beginning to blossom as a romantic partner, as a potential romantic interest for Sheridan. There are many moving gears and parts here. I want to know, what has been your viewpoint of this episode? Tell us about your relationship journey. What has it been?
I've always enjoyed this episode. How about you?
I've enjoyed this one very much so. I think it is the pinnacle of Talia Winter's character in the entire show. We will get to it when she leaves, but outside of that, this is the episode I think of her for, where she actually has agency, where she actually does things, where she actually has wants, needs, desires. She's challenged on her ideologies. I am a big fan of Bester. Mm-hmm. This probably has my favorite Bester moment in the entire series. I love his introduction in this episode, where he's ripping the information out of the guy's dying brain, and he is just creepy, menacing, unsettling, a little bit funny too. If you want to capture what Bester is as an entire character,
this episode,
it's that opening. It's that opening where he's smiley and disingenuous and
like
scary.
He's holding the thought in his hand.
He relishes
the kind of kisses it away.
He relishes the power he has over others, and he loves abusing it and punishing and hurting people. And he does it with a smiley
and getting what he wants.
And just slamming down that fascist boot of his. He is in his element. And that opening is forever what this episode is to me. The rest of it is all very fun with the rent stuff and Delenn in the dress and Talia holding hands with the other people. But when I think of A Race to the Dark Places, I think of how it does a marvelous job of reintroducing Bester and really showing us that he is not someone you fuck with. He is not someone that you underestimate. He's not someone that you just giggle at and go, oh, it's Walter Koenig, it's Chekhov. This, again, is really hammering in, he's not Chekhov.
He feels different.
He's completely different, and I like this episode quite a lot. It is probably my favorite telepath-related episode. I'm not a huge lover of the Psy-Core episodes overall. I like Bester a lot, but when it comes to the psychics are a minority and an oppressed people stories in this show, they are not the ones that I really gravitate towards. No. I like the more political wheeling dealings of our ambassador characters. I like the other Earth stuff that the humans have to deal with. I like the Psy-Core in general, but I don't love it as much. And this is the one where I love it. I love how Bester is used. I like the actual Underground Railroad, and I like the stories we get from them and what it really gives you a sense of how fucking evil the Psy-Core is, which we already know, but this feels far more human in its approach rather than world-buildy.
As an audience member, I really resonate with Talia's experience and the way that the telepaths who are part of the railroad are like, you're so close to understanding.
Yeah, but you're not there yet.
Because, like, after we hear the testimonials along with Talia, it's like, you can't go back?
No, because you have already been touched by the horrors, us, the audience, and Talia.
You know that it's not good, but it's what you know.
Yeah.
What choice do you have?
Right, and from an audience perspective, we are already unsympathetic. We don't like the core. We already heard all these horror stories, but some of the ones you hear in this episode, you can't. You just can't like the Psy-Core. You can't go, oh, and
can't go, oh, that's forgivable, that's understandable.
No, it is a reminder of the horrors that humanity will inflict upon itself. And that is thoroughly explained when Garibaldi and Sheridan go over. I really
love Garibaldi's kind of explanation and Sheridan's response of, like, this is a monster that we made.
And we probably deserve it. And it is that thing of, historically speaking, when we fear others or we exclude others and we put them in their little box in their little corner, the resentment grows from there and it spirals out, and it is a worrisome thing that even in the world of the future, it's still something that we have, that in all the far-flung future, there's still these fascist cops, and now they're literal mind police, and this is just a part of the Babylon 5 world that people like Garibaldi and Sheridan accept. They fear it, they don't like it, but it is a part of the world. We just have to talk to Bester. That's just a part of the day-to-day job of, oh, yeah, a part of my job, a part of my life in the world of Babylon 5 is I just interact with an actual fascist cop, like an actual black-suited, boot-stomping, mind-invading police officer guy, a psy-cop, and he comes from a whole organization that just motivates that attitude. Isn't that just dark?
We took away every right they had and shoved them into a big black box called Psy-Core. Now look at them. Black uniforms, jack boots, giving orders. Some days they scare the hell out of me.
To talk about the lighter elements first, because...
But profits are down, Ryan.
Profits are down. We are in budget talk straight off the bat with this episode, but I really wanted to highlight this is a JMS episode. He has returned, and we talk about all this dark stuff about the Psy-Core, and we will talk about it even further. But here we are in the tonal juggling act that is a JMS script, because this episode has very sweet, very cute, very tender, very loving moments, and then it'll hard cut to something very horrifying.
Absolutely.
Without it being abrasive.
A JMS special.
Without it being abrasive and out of place, it works so smoothly to weirdly cut from a romantic dinner scene with Delenn and Sheridan to a creepy proposal for a breakfast of Bester and Talia. There's thematic purposes there. There's narrative mirroring and paralleling there. I remember vividly several times over the course of interviews and audio commentaries, JMS has always said that when you have a big, powerful, dramatic, sad, horrifying scene, follow it up with a joke, please. Please just follow it up with some levity, for Christ's sake. You don't want to just be wallowing in the misery. And I think that is so prevalent in this episode of we hear these horrifying things and then it'll be followed up with some respite, some moment of levity. And unlike in like some other shows, as we always mention, Star Trek Discovery, it doesn't give you whiplash. It is, oh, thank God, a nice cool glass of water after I've just been in the searing heat of a psych-core scene. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, like, I agree. It's done wonderfully. It can epically fail. But here in this episode in particular, it works well.
We got Delenn and Sheridan. And you have mentioned in the past that you are a fan of their relationship.
Yes.
And this is the episode that is finally pushing that forward. Do you remember how you felt at the time?
I remember being kind of taken aback by her asking him to dinner and wondering how much she understands that is also a romantic gesture.
Especially with the dress.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think she does.
No.
But also I think she thinks he's cute.
Yeah.
'Cause he is.
Yeah. I think she likes him.
Yeah.
And she sees an opportunity. But I don't think she recognizes him fully as a romantic possibility.
We have not really had majorly any romantic plots in this manner in the ongoing of the two characters are going to get romantically linked together in the show. This happens in all shows, basically most of them. And you are far more of a fan of that than I am. And you often require or yearn for that in your shows, especially of an ensemble variety.
Yeah.
Could you explain why that is for you? Why do you need that? Because I have talked in the past, and I'll just mention it briefly again. It works, of course, but a lot of the times I find it to just be boring, honestly. I just find the romantic courting and the dinner dates and all of that stuff in lots of shows and the will they, won't they atmosphere to just be very tiresome. I grew up in the era of Friends. I'm literally married to Rachel, but I'm not Ross. I'm Ryan. In case you haven't listened to the show before, hello, Yumlings, I'm Ryan. But why do you crave and yearn that from your stories?
I enjoy romantic tension in shows. I think a lot of it comes from that. And I enjoy seeing those types of relationships explored.
What about them, though? That no matter how many times you see it in media, you still crave that. Like how I crave my science fiction, you crave your romancy stuff. Why?
I don't know. I just like it.
You just like it for what it is. And when this came along, as you said, it took you a bit aback. Were you craving that from Babylon 5? Were you craving that characters would get together?
No.
So...
Because I didn't think that it's a thing that they would be doing.
Why? The characters are all very emotional. They have loves and wants and needs, desires. We had Catherine Sakai existed in the show.
Yeah, like, but that wasn't... Their relationship is off to the side. It's happening along with these other plots, and then we cut back in at key moments. Whereas Sheridan and Delen's relationship evolves throughout the show and is central to plots of episodes and is key for things happening in the series as a whole.
True. And yeah, I remember that you were surprised when this happened because you didn't think of the pairing of them together. You didn't think, oh yeah, Sheridan and Delen, they're the two that would get together. You didn't really have any idea. And I think it's true that when I watched it as well, I didn't consider that there would be a romantic thing because it wasn't ever really at the forefront of any of the other stories and any of the other characters. And it's Delen who, up until this point, has been very cold and very distant and very alien. Now, she's a bridge. She's wanting to be warmer and to be closer and form these connections. And I am here for it. I always think to myself that I'm not a fan of Delen and Sheridan's relationship. Not in terms of I hate it, more I don't want to see, like, it's not what I'm excited to see on a rewatch because I know how it plays. Yeah, like I said, they're not my thing, but damn it. I watched this episode and I watched the other ones and I just go, aw, they're so cute together. It melts the ice in my heart. I honestly can't help but be drawn in to the chemistry of not just the actors, but the characters themselves. I like seeing Delen be this cute character. I know there's a great group of people out there who love the cold, Minbari badass warrior lady.
Shady
Delen, who's wheeling and dealing. I love that too, but I honestly just do love having a cutesy character in a show if they're still clever, and she still is clever, and I liked hearing more about the Minbari culture in the context of also in a dinner date scenario instead of exposition of, and Jinxo has come to their quarters and Lanier is explaining this. It's a nicer, different way to do exposition and lore dump because also the audience, although we are getting that information and we're listening to it going, oh yes, humor, they have it, blah, blah, blah. What we're actually focusing on is, oh, these two are going to be a thing in the show. Oh, I'm going to have to pay attention to that spinning plate now, rather than focusing on, this is Minbari lore. That is what I appreciate about this scene as well, with them going on a dinner date. It isn't just so transparent. It is several gears moving into place.
I like the way that is clearly set up as well. Like Gwendolyn is asking him out. She's just so cute. Like, I love the way that he reacts. Like, dinner?
Me?
What? And she's just like,
I killed your people, right?
I just want to talk, and I don't want to talk about any of these things.
Oh God, no. But you get to see a side of Sheridan, which we like, which is warm, friendly Sheridan, in which he chuckles to himself and says things, and it's very cute.
1 minute they're shooting at you.
The next minute they're taking you out to dinner. Oh boy. Oh my God. There were like 4 times in this episode where Sheridan said something out loud and then chuckled to himself. That's his character, people. People,
a lot.
Every time, take a drink. You'll be dead in this show. If you binge watch the show, you will die. Because it's every episode Sheridan is going, magic. All the time he's doing it, and you know what? I love it. I'm here for it because this episode solidified something that we've already talked about. He is a fucking dork.
Oh, fucking dork.
Sheridan is such a
fucking
He's such a square. He's such a dork. He's a dweeb. He's a square. He tells bad jokes, and he thinks he's the funniest. He snores.
I loved that. Like, that woman was a saint.
Yeah.
But I love, like, the moment that clears that for me is when they're like waiting by the elevator and he's just like, I'm not even thinking what I'm thinking.
I'm not saying what I'm saying. I'm not saying what I'm thinking. As a matter of fact, I'm not thinking what I'm thinking. There's only one thing on my mind right now.
What's that?
I need a drink.
And a place to stay.
Thanks, Doc. I just about managed to forget about that.
Sheridan's going through a lot in this episode, and although he's not the main character necessarily, he is a conduit for all of the things happening, and we kick off the episode by talking about budget, and we kick it off by Sheridan being revealed in this nice B plot, and the B stands for background in this one, definitely, of the Earth Central is going to force Ivanova and Sheridan to pay 30 credits a week for rent on their quarters because their quarters are deemed large enough that they need to pay. And Earth Central is money hungry. You can't defeat Earth Central when it comes to money is often a thing. And Sheridan is absolutely livid. He is not having it. He's forcing Ivanova to also join him in protest because she just doesn't really want to kick up a fuss. But that's the thing. I love that too. Ivanova does not want to kick up a fuss, so she's willing to pay it, but then also because she's not willing to kick up a fuss, she is also on board to just do what Sheridan wants to do. She just wants to get on with it, but she also doesn't care enough to really...
She'll follow the lead.
Yeah, and again, it's done well here without diminishing the integrity of her character because she's a strong-willed character. It's done here for the comedic sensibilities of it all because that's what Ivanova really is in this episode. Although the Psychor stuff's happening and we get the nice serious scene at the end with her and Talia, Ivanova's really a comedic relief character in this episode, in all honesty. What do you think about that?
I like it. I really enjoyed the scene when Garibaldi comes to see her at Earhart's and
everybody's favorite Earhart's,
the official business bell.
Claudia Christian's fucking chewing the set in that scene, isn't she? She's going full hog. She's got Londo energy. She is up to 10 in that scene, and it is a joy, actually. We haven't seen her like that in quite a little while, but she's having a ball. I love this whole Sheridan is mad that they have to make him pay rent thing. I like that it doesn't outstay its welcome. It's not treated as if it's a serious plot. It is just a joke. It is just funny, and it's just another brilliant little piece of world building that Earth Central is garbage. And we hate it, and we don't like it. It's just another reminder of how Earth is bad.
Yeah.
Just another reminder of, like, you think in these sci-fi shows, and even remove it from the sci-fi context, you think of military person like him who's in charge of this thing would not have to be forced to pay for their own accommodation necessarily.
Yeah,
but here we are.
It's like... And it's not even necessarily paying for their accommodation, right? It's because their quarters are 7 square feet larger than what Earth Force says is necessary.
Yeah, what Earth Central says is necessary, which is just bureaucratic
nonsense. Because it's just like, oh, well, we can get more money if we rent out their quarters and make them have smaller ones, right?
Yeah.
So it's like only 30 credits a week for that 7 feet.
Yep.
So
exactly.
It's even weirder.
Yeah.
Like, and even more bureaucratic. It's just like, okay.
And capitalist.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before, but an episode where they talk about the nitty-gritty of the budget is really going to hammer in that the failings of a capitalist and consumer society that we are currently living in can still propel out even though we go to the stars. And although it's treated in a joking fashion here with them having to pay the rent, and the way that they solve it is in like what would be a Catch-22 scenario in which they make Earth pay for itself.
Mm-hmm. Feels like a very Sinclair approach.
Oh, that's a Sinclair move. That was JMS had some remaining Sinclair move drafts available, and he just dropped that one in. That's a Sinclair move. That's a straight up Jeffrey Sinclair maneuver there. And I really like there's these little cute touches of they know when to bring that back up again. The plot of the quarters, because things get serious, things get dark, things get brooding, and then, hey, let's bring up the quarters again. So, hey, Ivanova, I'm Garibaldi, and I'm doing my job, and I think you're the one who's doing this stuff with the telepaths. And Ivanova's like, it's not me, I hate the Corps, we all know about my brooding backstory, but it's not me. Either way, I'm going to go to my quarters now because I need to rest. Oh, about that, hard cut to they're locked, right? It is knowing when to release the air from the balloon and when to close it again. It's perfectly done. I really appreciate too. Did you notice this touch? Franklin, he has a cot in his bed in his quarters that he's like, you can use my cot if you want. And you remember why he has a cot? Because Sheridan doesn't have a cot. They gave you a cot. You don't remember?
He requisitioned it for medical purposes.
He lied. He used his authority to do something that wasn't true.
Yep.
He abused his authority for something. And even though it's in a comedic fashion, there is a nice little tell in the episode, a nice little wink to the audience for when the reveal happens of Franklin is the guy running the Underground Railroad. You just further buy it, because not only because of the blatant reasonings of why you would buy it, of his character and his background that we've already heard that we will talk about, but within the episode, you buy it because that little moment there tells you, oh, Franklin, the morally upright guy, is willing to play a little bit dirty with his position for things that he wants. And even though it's cute, he still does that. And then another thing, did you note down this? Bester calls a meeting for the full command staff. That includes Franklin, I do believe. And, well, was he at the meeting?
No.
Exactly. And usually with that, right, we would usually pass that off as, oh, is Franklin is a doctor. He's probably just too busy to go. Or even in other episodes where Franklin doesn't appear, but they reference Franklin, we make that claim as well, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, oh, Franklin doesn't need to be, he's busy, he's working. But it's great because you think about it logistically in the world of the plot.
No way does he want to get anywhere near
He's not going in there because
Bester.
he's going to get scanned and he'll get caught. So he just doesn't show up to the meeting, and they never address it. It's one of those little things that, and it might be me reading because I don't know, full command staff, I assume he would have to be there because he's been there for other meetings where they call the command staff as well. And he is one of the head guys. So, but it is a neat little detail.
In principle, I agree with what you're doing. But there are laws. And whether I like them or not, I'm a soldier. I am honor-bound to obey the law.
And as a doctor, I'm honor-bound to help these people.
So what am I supposed to do now? If I turn you in, and right now I'm more than a little tempted, I embarrass the station, Earth Central, and give the folks back home one more reason to shut us down.
When it comes to a human-focused story in Babylon 5, the recurring issue that I have come across for myself on the rewatch and having to analyze it and nail it down is when the characters that are here don't feel the need to be here other than to fill up space, when they aren't challenging or adhering to those people's personalities and their fundamental core beliefs. So in this episode, to give an example of how it does it well, is we have Garibaldi, whose job it is to uphold the law. He says that throughout the episode, while it is Franklin's job to save lives, and it is Sheridan's job to mediate all that, to be the guy who upholds the law, but
a
also
soldier.
He's a soldier, he's a military man, he's a leader, but it's his job to uphold all that while still maintaining the mantra of Babylon 5. It is Ivanov's job to be this empathetic person, but also she's conflicted because she hates the Psi Corps. And it is Talia's job, fundamentally as a character, her job is to, be a representative of the Psi Corps who's realizing that that's bad. And all of those characters are friends with one another, or at least friendly, but when you challenge that status quo that's held within them, they are going to adhere to that. Franklin is going to save lives. Garibaldi is going to uphold the law. Sheridan is going to do this. And you see all of the characters do all of these things and conflict against one another and work out something together. While in other episodes where it's more human-based, you just have them there sometimes because we have to have the humans there. We can't have the aliens in this one, and they are just here. And that is where my disappointment comes from a human-based stories. There's a good portion of the times where they're just kind of boring. You're like, okay, cool. It's nice to see them there. I like these characters. But you want the dramatic flair of Jakar and Londo, because no matter what, you have Jakar and Londo there, they're going to be dramatically higher than the humans are because of just their grand scale of personal woes and wants, needs, and desires are just so heightened. But when you can tune in, when they can hit the right note with the human crew, it is electric to watch. And I was really noting that down, that all of the characters that were in this episode were here for a purpose. They weren't just there to fill up the screen time and to let the cast have something to do that week.
No.
They were all...
Yeah. They were all important.
They were all important. They all helped one another or stopped one another. It was a living, breathing thing where everybody served their purpose, and their purpose rang true because we know those characters already and we know them so well. So when Garibaldi is going to team up with Bester at the end, it makes sense because he's the cop. It's his job. He doesn't like it. He's not a fan, but he is a man who is about upholding the law, while Franklin is willing to break the law because his oath is to save lives, is to help others. And Sheridan is conflicted because he's kind of in the middle of the two of them on this, where he has to uphold the law, but he has to figure out this way of, I don't want to hand over these people to the Psi Corps because I don't trust them, they're evil. And then we have Talia, where Talia is working with Bester. She doesn't like him, she doesn't appreciate him, but also he is a representative of the things she likes. And by the end of the episode, she is flipped around on that because of her relationship and dynamic with the Underground Railroad, where she is just being bombarded with these harsh truths because somebody has to do it. Somebody has to bombard her. And who does she retreat to at the very end? The person who was doing that to begin with, Ivanova.
Yeah, the person who gave her the unbridled truth about the Psi Corps in the first place is the one that she returns to.
The characters are implemented very well for the efficiency of the story. Who is Sheridan talking to at the beginning of after the opening credits? Who's he talking to about the rent situation?
Franklin.
Yes, Franklin. And then Franklin goes away. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's nice to see Franklin in the episode, because there's been episodes like that where it's like, oh, and he's Franklin. He's going to be here because we just need to have him here to remind the audience he exists. Same with Talia. But in this episode, no. Franklin's here. They gave you a little, hey, look, it's Franklin. Isn't he nice? And then he comes back. And then he comes back with a significance in the story that adheres and keeps in line with what he is as a character, his convictions, his morals, his sets of values.
Yeah,
his career.
I really appreciate that moment for that being the reminder, because I think the next time that he pops up is when he's like, yeah, the runner of the Underground Railroad wants to meet you.
Exactly.
If that had been his first appearance in the episode, it would feel really weird, really random.
Exactly, and there's no reason in the narrative for Franklin to appear outside of him being at the staff meeting, which he can't be at, because they would have to maybe write in that one of the people got shot and then survived and taken to med lab, and maybe that's how you do it. But again, that is just focusing in on him being the doctor character, while him at the beginning, it's him being his friend. So that way, when he confronts Sheridan at the end, he is not just relating to Sheridan on the grounds of principle, but he's also relating to him on the grounds of being a friend, being a colleague, being a good man, of, you know me. You know that I wouldn't do this haphazardly. You know that I wouldn't just abuse my position if it wasn't for something good, because we are friends. We hang out at the bar and bitch about rent. You know I'm a good man. Listen to me. So having him at the beginning is smart, it's efficient, it's wise, and this episode is just filled to the brim with that, where it isn't just Bester and Talia the whole episode and then maybe Sheridan will pop in. No, they are all here and they're all working off one another, and I think that is what makes a human-based episode work so much better for me, is when the characters are truly bouncing off one another, because we like the human crew a lot.
Yeah.
So
we spend a lot of time with them. We care about them.
And so it's disappointing, right, that our preferences lie when it's episodes not necessarily focused on just their stories, where it's just a human story.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind when it's human-centric. I appreciate that even in the human-centered stories, it never lets you forget where and when we are.
Is he right or isn't he?
Technically? Yeah, I suppose. And we're obliged to uphold the laws of Earth Alliance. It doesn't mean we have to like it. And if there is some kind of illegitimate travel going through here, it's a threat to station security, and we have to know about it.
Oh, come on, Garibaldi, you can't tell me you agree with this. You want to help them?
Want, agree, that has nothing to do with it. The law is the law.
It's Talia time?
It's Talia time. It's TT, Talia time. We only have like 2 more episodes where we can say it's TT, Talia time. Mm-hmm. It's Talia time. We've been very negative on Talia.
Yeah.
So let's, for Talia time, let's check the other TT, the Talia temp, the Talia temperature. Mm-hmm. Where are you with your Talia temperature? How do you feel about her now? After this episode, where do you land?
A little bit warmer.
Yeah?
Not fully on board, but a little bit warmer. How about you?
Well, I'm more curious to hear further from you about why you are kind of still a little bit middly on it.
I think I can't get fully on board because I know where this goes and we're getting close to it.
Or where it doesn't go.
Yeah.
You're the future.
That's more apt.
A very short future, like one big episode future.
I really appreciate what they did with Talia in this one, but it's not a big enough shift for me to fully say that, like, yeah, I'm on board with Talia now. I'm like, yeah, okay, you get this. And the thing that warms me to her the most is the scene at the end when she goes to Susan.
Yeah. Here's where I'm at. I really liked her in this episode. I thought she was great. I was so happy to have that catharsis.
I thought she was perfect in this.
I liked having that catharsis of the release of her being the Psy-Corps lackey. I enjoyed her dynamics with Bester. I enjoyed seeing her be a badass. I enjoyed seeing her be clever, to be wise, to be emotional.
She did her best to sell that flashback scene.
Oh, yes. And I enjoyed the thing with her and Ivanova at the end, of course, as well. Here's where I come down on it. I have talked about how I don't think Talia's a character, really, or a very well-defined character, and I still stick by that. Because in this episode, she is a conduit as well, where she walks around and has things happen at her. And she's like, oh my god, yeah. But I still can't tell you much about her as a character outside of what her arc is. I can tell you what Garibaldi's character is in many different ways within just a singular episode. And I can't do that with Talia. The way I would describe this is, you know when you watch a TV show, especially back in the day where you're channel surfing, right? and you are familiar with the show, but maybe you've never even watched it or you've watched some of it, but you're tuning in to an episode and
You're jumping in cold.
You're jumping in cold or you're jumping in blind, and you see an episode like this and you go, oh boy, wow, this is a biggie. Oh man, I can't wait to watch the show and really get to know the Talia character more to really appreciate this. That's still how I feel. Where
Yeah.
I wish that I could say, oh, I've watched the show and I really know the Talia character, so this this still feels like I am in 1994 or 1995, and I've tuned in randomly into an episode in which there's big things happening for a character, and it's hooked me, and I want to see more of this character to really understand them, to appreciate this moment even more so. But I've watched the other episodes with Talia, and I still don't have that appreciation for her as a character. Again, she is the arc. She is the whole indoctrinated turning against the system. But again, to tie into what you say, we know that that doesn't get to go anywhere. So it is a lackluster experience still, even though I, in this Talia time, enjoyed her very much. I was excited. I had some tingles about the fact that her character is going to change and her character is waking up, for fuck's sake, already, and that her and Ivanova are going to have a closer relationship and maybe some scenes together. You know, and a plot together one day. Because they still haven't had a plot together since Legacies.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in scenes, but they haven't had a plot together. And they're only going to have one other plot together, and it's the end of Talia. So that's where I am with Talia at the moment. I thought she was fantastic in this episode, but I still don't think it's earned. It's not earned to me.
There is something else that I want to acknowledge, which is I don't think something that I appreciated in past watches of the show. How they emphasize and explore that the Psy-Corps manipulates their own.
Yeah.
And experiments on their own. Because I always kind of felt like, what the fuck is this thing with Talia and her being a sleeper agent? Bullshit. And now I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Psy-Corps just goes, can we do this? We'll experiment until we can do this.
Because they believe what Bester believes, which is everyone in the Corps loves the Corps unconditionally. The Corps' mother, and the Corps' mother, the Corps' father. You are willing to get impregnated to further the gene pool of stronger telepaths. And if you don't, tough shit, we're going to do it against your will anyway. And you should just appreciate that because you were wrong. You're an innocent, silly little child. Let the Corps, let your parents tell you how to live your life. It is very good, the Corps stuff here. This episode, it makes them scary. Bester's here. Let's talk about Bester. I love him. I love him so much. One of the things I was dumbfounded by here, because I always say this about Bester, he's a smart character. I always appreciated that he does not, again, spoiler alert, in the show, don't care about the books or unwritten scripts for Crusade, in the show, he does not die. And I always say, it's great because his character is too smart to die. I would not buy it if he did die in the show because his character is too clever and too well positioned for me to narratively buy that he would die in any fashion. And one of the things that dumbfounded me here, he's dumb as well, but in a way that is good. So what I mean is, he is not that villainous character that's so smart that they can't outdo him.
He's not Moriarty.
He's not Moriarty. He is a very clever foe, but one that has his weaknesses and has his foibles, and he is an emotional character. Mm-hmm. He has failings. He's not a great cop. He does things that are illegal and wrong, and that bites him in the ass, and that's why they can win over him, because he's a dirty cop.
I have... You said he's not a great cop.
No, he's not.
He's a great psych cop.
Well, yes.
Like,
yes.
that is a big difference because he does not have to worry about playing by the rules because he's the one that's making them. So he is a good cop because he's a psychop and he does exactly what he needs to do to get the job done, which is all they care about. And he has an excellent reputation inside the Corps.
Yeah, and a good villain's weakness often is their strength or the thing that we like about them as a character. So I like that Bester is an egotistical, narcissistic, power-hungry, thinks he's God-type character. I like that about him as a villain. Because he's a villain, because he's an antagonist, because he's a rival. I like that about him. The show recognizes that for a start, unlike with Giorgio in Star Trek Discovery. I like those qualities. But the great thing is, those qualities are also his downfall. He thinks he's cleverer than anyone else in the room, and that is his weakness because he underestimates the mundanes. He underestimates Talia Winters. He underestimates these blips, these rogue telepaths. He thinks he is untouchable. And constantly we are shown that he isn't. But because he's so confident within himself, and since he's so mannered and his performance is so electric, we still like him and don't think of him as a boob of a character. Because also, the way they defeat him isn't necessarily the most clever ways that they defeat him, but they are the most appropriate ways of defeating Bester. You nod your head at the end of this episode going, when the Underground Railroad join up together and break his brain and make him see a certain thing. It's pretty clever, but it's also, yeah, how else would you defeat Bester other than killing him with a gun? How else would you do it? That's how you do it. What do you think about Bester overall and in this episode and any of that kind of stuff of the balancing act of having a character be super smart and confident in themselves, but also have enough failings in which our characters can actually overcome them?
It's great. Like, it's complexities and depth that the writing gives to the performer, and the performer gets to do so much with it. It's just, it makes for wonderful television.
And Bester, what do you got to say about our B-boy?
Oh, he's a complete and utter dirtbag. And I love it every time he turns up.
But he has a wife and a
and
5-year-old
a daughter who's gonna get taken away from him soon. If not, should have been taken off him already.
Oh, come on. He's a good man.
Would it interest you to know that I'm married, Mr. Garibaldi? That I have a 5-year-old daughter? That on Sundays when I'm back home, we pack a picnic lunch and go out under the dome on Syria Planum and watch the stars come out? Hardly the description of a monster.
Smooth. You're getting good at this. Keep working on it. One of these days I might even be convinced that you're human.
Outside of Walter Koenig's brilliant performance, what do you like about his character, and what did you like about it here in this episode? Because it's easy to jump just to his performance is really good, because it is. It speaks for itself, his performance.
Yeah, like just the determination that he has to get that thought. Oh, it's brutal. And I love how determined Bester is, and in a way where it's interesting that the morals of the situation are not even a blip on his radar. Like, it's really is that inequality that he perceives between telepaths and normals. Of like, well, I don't need to justify, I don't need to think about your rules. Normals' rules don't apply to me. And he oozes that through like everything that he says in this episode.
One of the things that I'm really appreciating on the rewatch about Bester's character is when I think about him other times I've watched the show, or just when I'm talking about him in casual conversation, I think of him as a brilliant character. Oh, what a great villainous character, where I stroke my chin and I think of him as this guy who plays 4D chess and does all these things. What I'm really appreciating here is he's very human as a foe.
He's a human without humanity.
Yeah, but he's a very human foe, and I'm really appreciating that of when he had that conversation with Garibaldi where he's trying to play Garibaldi with the, look, I have a family and all that, and it doesn't work, and Garibaldi calls him out on it. Even though it's calling him out on his lacking ability to come across as a human and whatever, it humanized him to me in a way in terms of, oh, yeah. Of course the evil cop man is going to try and play that card. It just made me believe in his existence more, rather than just being the cool villain in the show that pops up from time to time. I actually am appreciating on the watch what a real guy he feels like, how he comes across as a person that exists off the station. When we don't see him, he is doing things, and that is definitely earned in his final episode where we have a day in the life of Bester.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't have been earned if you didn't have the consistency of his character spread throughout even episodes like this, where he is someone like Garibaldi. He's going to uphold the law, but the law is different for the Corps. Their version of justice, their version of what is right and wrong is completely different, but he's still going to uphold it. Because one of the things I really appreciate too is he's just a cop. We always think of he's like, oh, he wants to start this war, but Bester is just a cop in the Corps. He's not like this huge mega player. He has influence, but he's just like Garibaldi. He's just a guy who's doing his job, but his job is very shitty. He's not going to become the president of Earth and do all these evil things. He thinks
he's
he is.
not in charge of Psy-Corps.
No, he thinks he has more. And that's the thing too. That's what I like about him as a character. He thinks he's bigger than he is. But he's just a guy with a gun and a badge. And he thinks that's enough to turn the keys. And also he has mind powers. But it makes him very human because he's just so small. There's something about having a villain like him when you have a show where villains are literal spider people that brings you back to reality.
Interesting.
We don't blame you. You fell under the influence of outsiders. They used you and then abandoned you. You mean nothing to them. You were raised by the Corps, clothed by the Corps. We are your father and your mother. Don't force us to do this.
So we have the Underground Railroad. What do you think about this whole entire idea happening
I
here?
like the idea. I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense that people would want to help these telepaths, like people who learn what the Corps is actually like and how disgusting it is.
And Babylon 5 is a great location to run this through because the Corps' influence doesn't reach that well out there.
No, it's a good waypoint.
Because Talia is the only real Psy-Corps representative there, and she's she's
preoccupied. She's not a cop.
Yeah, she's not a cop. She's just a person who does business meetings. She's not keeping an eye on if Babylon 5 is doing anything shady against the Corps' values.
Even though Bester asks her to do that.
Yeah, but even she treats it as if that's something that's not in her purview. He's asking her to do something that she shouldn't be doing. That's beyond Star Trek Beyond. No, I like it. I think it's a great piece of world building because it recontextualizes things we've seen from the past, specifically certain lurker characters we've met before already, as well as Franklin's free clinic. It comes across as this was seeded through already, even if it may not have been, but it probably was because it's JMS. It just adds up that there would be people who are mundanes that, like Franklin, recognize the horrors of the world, recognize the brutalities, and want to help, and they're doing it in the way that they can. And it will reverberate throughout the show, because I think about Veer during the Centauri-Narn conflict, in which he does his version of this, where he helps the Narns and he helps bring them out and do all of these things. And I like characters who have moral integrity enough to actually put themselves in danger to help others.
Yeah.
Is it weird to say? It's blatant thing to say, but it brings a smile to my face that although Babylon 5 is a very cynical show, very brutal, it can be very dour. The things here with the Underground Railroad and them actually being able to escape, and people like Franklin and others.
One person can help.
One person actually can make a difference.
And shift the tide, which is what Talia does with the telepaths. Like, they say, like, this should not have worked. You tip the scales. You choosing to help us is why this worked.
Yes, and of course, the show's leaning very heavily on the fact that because she has superpowers, she helped. But on a more, to zoom in more on it, to talk to us, the viewer at home, it is also speaking to the fact that there's a recurring message in Babylon 5, which is don't be complacent with things, whether it is nationalism or bigotry or any of these things. You not making a choice is making a choice. And Talia, that's been her character, is I'm not going to make a choice. That's you making a choice, Talia. And now you made one in which you're actually helping others, and it will impact you, and it will impact others, as it already has, and it will reverberate and it will ring out, and that is it speaking to us, the audience. Yes, it's also talking about, like, because you have superpowers, but for me sitting at home, it makes you think, yes, could I be brave enough? Could I actually get off my ass to do anything like Franklin and Talia did in this episode? Even, would I be willing to sacrifice my own safety and my own comforts to help another person? That's the thing that's really great about Franklin being the ally. Which, when you watched it that first time, do you remember your reaction to when it was just Franklin swaggered out?
I was like, oh, fucking course.
So you didn't guess it was him before?
I kind of did. Like, from the you'll have to trust me. I'm like, this feels like a you thing, Franklin. Feels like a you thing. And then it was.
It was, and it was thoroughly earned. I can't believe that 4 episodes ago, or 3 episodes ago, one of the writers and JMS allowed Franklin to be a guy who's like, fuck the lurkers, because I've got a boner. And yet this is the same character.
Yep.
Unforgivable still from that episode. When I watched this one, I was thinking about that. So it was at the front of my brain. I was just thinking, what the fuck? This guy, although flawed, and we have seen it and we'll see it again, he's a very noble character, a very morally strong character. And I thought it was brilliant, the reveal. I remember I wasn't surprised. Sometimes when I watch shows, I don't know if you're like this. I don't bother trying to outguess the show. I just kind of watch it.
Yeah.
And this was one of those where I didn't try to outthink the show and go, who is it? I just took it as it came.
I was just like, oh, this seemed a little sus. We'll see how it plays out. And I was like, okay.
Yes. And Franklin being the guy, it makes sense. They bring up his free clinic.
Again, they tie it back in.
Something that he was running illegally. And I like that too, of not only was he running it illegally, he was also running it double illegally because it was a front for another thing he was doing.
Yeah. I loved that.
I actually forgot about that to bring, we didn't bring that up in our Quality of Mercy discussion that it was a front for him to do another illegal thing. His illegal activity was a front for another illegal activity. Don't you love that?
Last year, I set up a clinic down below so we could start processing runaways and changing records without anyone from MedLab knowing about it.
The big question that we're dancing around, because this is a Talia episode. We talk about all this highly, and we know that You can't control everything behind the scenes wise, but it is how it is. Talia, her story abruptly ends. It goes nowhere.
She falls down a trapdoor.
She falls down a trapdoor because the actress had all these reasons. JMS had to come up with this stuff. Does not negate this question, though. Does this matter? When you watch this episode, is that question ever in your brain of like, oh, none of this matters, really? This doesn't matter. Does this matter? Because
it matters less. I would say that it still matters a little bit. Like the Talia stuff. But no, it doesn't matter as much as it was originally intended. That's the feeling that I get.
100%. It does not matter in the way that it was intended to matter. I would love to be as forgiving as most fans are of B5 and as mature as one could be in terms of, although the Talia stuff doesn't go anywhere, and you could argue that it still matters because it touches upon themes of stuff or other. I still kind of wipe the slate clean of whole episodes where it is so much about these things that don't go anywhere. It's not just with Talia, it's just in other shows in general.
Yeah, it happens.
Like Bureau 13, for instance, a previous episode doesn't go anywhere, and I kind of look at that episode and go, it doesn't really matter. It does. It has things I enjoy best. I enjoy all this stuff. I'm still probably going to give this a yum, but there is that thing of...
It factors in.
This doesn't go anywhere. And it does hold back my full appreciation of this. And that is a drawback of Babylon 5 being a show that is ongoing and has continuity and arcs and serialization to some point. And how many shows have you watched, Rachel? You are a big watcher of shows where cast members have to leave. Mm-hmm. How many shows have you watched with this kind of serialized or ongoing thing, and then the writers didn't know what to do, or the cast member left, or whatever, and it just goes nowhere? And how disappointed are you by that?
Depends on how much I cared about the character a lot of the time.
Or how much time it was given.
Yeah. Like, it varies a lot. Like, with Talia, I'm like, you were gearing up for something, and then it immediately falls flat. If they'd gotten further into the storyline and then she left, I think I would be more pissed.
Yeah, maybe, but also I think if there was more of it, I would hopefully care more about the character. Here it is, we're just starting with the character. Oh, they're gone.
No. Okay, bye-bye, Talia.
I have a harder time when I rewatch something, or when I watch something and I know that this won't matter.
Yeah.
In the way that I'm saying of like narrative and thematic resolution. It just cuts off, and when I watch an episode like this, I just go, oh, it's great that this is doing things, but when he literally says, you are the future, I laugh, because I'm like, no, she's not. She doesn't go anywhere. Yeah,
an exemplar of this, and I think we've brought this up before, you do not like starting shows that are ongoing.
No.
Because you don't like to run the risk that you will start watching a show, like it, and it'll get cancelled. Mm-hmm. And you don't like bothering with shows that have been cancelled, even if they're like top tier, like everybody raves about them. Like Deadwood is the go-to example for that.
I've watched a good amount of Deadwood, but...
Yeah, it took you a long time though, because like...
And it technically has a conclusion now, but there are many, you're right, there are many shows that I just don't watch them because, they got cancelled. And I just don't want to hurt myself knowing. And there are some that I do force myself to because, come on, I want to know what it is, what it was like. And, there we go. Twin Peaks ends with a cliffhanger. And don't worry, we have to wait over 25 years to get a follow-up that isn't Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Yeah, you're right. I'm less forgiving of that, and I'm not forgiving of it here. As much as I enjoy the episode, I just can't help but say, it doesn't matter.
You're more than you think you are.
Then what am I?
The future.
Is it Spotlight time?
Spotlight, as Michael Keaton said in the great film, Spotlight! What is Spotlight? What is our Spotlight section, Rachel? And who are we talking about?
It is when, near the end of the episode, we stop and we reflect upon a guest actor's performance and career.
And any interesting trivia or pieces of information we've garnered. Who are we looking at?
The leader lurker in this episode who has appeared in B5 before.
Chrysalis. He appeared in Chrysalis. They reference that. They reference that he's existed in the show before.
Janin Lufla.
Yeah, hopefully that's how it's pronounced. He is Swiss.
Yes, he grew up in Switzerland.
Grew up in Switzerland. Was it the... Yeah. So he's the main lurker guy. I like him a lot, and I'm disappointed that he does not come back. He served his purpose. I get it, but he's very memorable. He has a specific... Distinct look, but also his voice and the way he delivers his lines, it's very purposeful. He's very commanding on the screen, and I am a bit disappointed we didn't get to see him once or twice more.
It makes a lot of sense when you read his bio.
Okay, well, we'll get to his bio.
He has a theatre background.
What? A theatre background person in B5?
Yeah. And they give a theatrical level performance.
What? I enjoyed him. I always liked that he was in a previous episode. It made you care about the character slightly more than you would if it was just some guy.
He cared about Petrov.
He's the only telepath in the group that I actually care about, and the one that I remember. I look.
You don't care about the woman that was
but I can't tell you what she looked like.
Oh, really? Okay.
She was just a lady. Like,
she was just
her story was her story that matters more. But this guy, because we've had him in a previous episode and he served a purpose there, he serves a purpose here, he bonds with Talia, he's the ringleader. I care about him more than if he was just in this episode because I have a familiarity with him in the past. That is the benefit of having this guy be cast again to play this role, because they could easily have just gotten some other person. Could have just been some guy. It could have been anyone. But the fact that they reused this guy and they tied it back to that, it, again, makes the show feel alive. It makes it have a continuity. It is just fun. I enjoyed him. I liked him. I liked his little back and forth with Talia. I thought she played off of him really well, actually.
Yeah.
Is it weird to me that Talia has more chemistry with guest characters than lead characters in this show? That actress seems to bounce off of the guest star performers better than she does the leads.
It is a bit odd, yeah.
So what do you expect me to do? Snap my fingers and make it all go away? You're asking me to take everything I believe and turn it upside down. Why? Why are you telling me this? Because you're special.
I like the gravitas that he brings to it, and I enjoy the presence that he has as the leader. Like, the way that he commands their attention and holds their respect is really evident from the way that he conducts himself. I'm particularly thinking of the scene where they're like pulling apart and putting back together the phases and then singing
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Yeah, like he is metaphorically and literally their center that's holding them together in that scene.
What do you think about the choice of not giving him a name or a backstory?
Other than he was in the experiments with Ironheart, yeah.
Like that's his backstory, that's it. But like, we don't get to know his name, we don't get to know too much about him. What do you think of that choice? Because there are some characters in the series that are nameless, yet you forever remember them, like the unnamed guard that was all up in Zach Allen's ass about the Night Watch when they were breaking away from Earth. He never got a name, yet you remember that blonde-haired motherfucker all these years later. What do you think about that choice of we are distant from this lurker? We never really get a deep insight into him, and we never get to know his name, yet you feel like you got to know him.
Yeah, because he opens up the door for the others to tell their stories. And I really appreciate that. I like that about the character.
It works for me because although he's a device most of the time for Talia, we need that. We need somebody to sit down with Talia and say, wake the fuck up, Talia. So his lack of character whether it be lore, exposition, or even a name, does not matter to me because he's serving, again, the script is all about people serving their functions and their purposes. His purpose in the script is to make Talia do this. And it was done in a way where it wasn't so artificial in which it aggravated me and all I could see was the device instead of the actor and character there.
Agreed.
So tell us a bit about his background. You know more about his background. I had a look at his IMDb. He's in nothing that I've ever seen him in. He's only been in this. This is all I know him from myself. Oh, except for he was in, what movie was it or show? There was something very specific in his catalog where Stargate. He was in Stargate, the film. I do not remember him, but I'm sure that if I ever...
1994.
Yes, the Kurt Russell film with James Spader. Fantastic film that I have only watched once. I remember nothing about it, but I remembered I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed Stargate in general, so maybe we have to rewatch it to see him in it, but I do know that he was apparently in that movie. That's the one thing I've seen of him outside of B5, and he did that straight before this. So what about you? What's your deal? Have you seen him in much, if anything?
I would have seen him in Grey's Anatomy.
Oh my God. Was he a doctor?
No.
Was he a patient?
Yeah. So he appears in Something to Talk About, which is a season 2 episode.
Ah, that season had June Lockhart.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
The
fact that I know that's really sad, but that's the burden of having to do this show.
The plot of this episode has not aged well, so I wanted to discuss
is the plot going to be insensitive?
So 2 characters go to marriage counselling.
Is he one of them?
No. 2 of the main characters. Meanwhile, Meredith becomes the main gossip topic in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And Izzy and Christina discover a pregnant man.
Is he the pregnant man?
No.
Oh my God, if he was a pregnant man, I would fucking lose my mind.
No, he's a psych patient that doesn't get a name.
I guess he plays disturbed characters a lot. I guess because we haven't mentioned it, he's a little person, if I'm not mistaken, right?
He's like 5'2"?
Yeah, look, you read into him more, but he looks like he has dwarfism to me. I may be incorrect there, but
he has some facial markers.
Yes, and vocal markers. But I haven't read anything that specifically says, but that's just the indication that I've gotten from just visual look. I don't know, but
yeah.
What have you garnered from his background? So you mentioned he has a theater background, Swiss theater.
So he's done a mix. So from what I remember reading about him, like he grew up in Switzerland. I think his father was a doctor and his mother was a pianist.
Okay.
Which is just a fun fact. And then like in his early 30s was when he kind of moved over to the US and started doing stuff over there.
Okay.
Because his first credit was the 1991 film Little Noises.
Okay. Was he the Noises? What? Was he or was he not?
I don't know. I don't think so, Ryan. But he was in this film, which also stars Rick Mayall and Crispin Glover.
Oh my God, Rick Mayall was the Noises. I know Rick Mayall. He made the fucking noises. Okay. Wow. Should we watch that for the podcast? Sounds like a great time.
So he's done a variety of things. And in that film, like he was an actor, but also an assistant to the director. And then he later went on and worked with that director again.
Oh, cool.
But I don't know if this is just a bit sad to me.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, like I'm gonna like look up him, and like on one of the websites, it was like, oh, this is his website.
Oh, okay. So he has his own little website.
Not anymore.
Oh, the URL died.
Yeah, he doesn't have it up anymore.
Bring it back.
But thankfully, other people saved it to the Wayback Machine.
Oh, thank God.
So I got to go and have a look at it through that, and even got to like download his little About Me PDF.
Oh, is it really good? Is it as good as Andreas Katsoulis's one on his website, where it's like, I've worked in all these places, but not a boat? The best.
It does have a cute like photo reel picture, which
we'll share in the social media. You showed me, it's very cute. It's him in a hat.
Yeah, just goofing around.
So is he still acting? Do we know?
He hasn't done anything since like 2014.
At least on IMDb.
2016. Yeah.
He might just be in theatre or retired. Who knows? He's been in the biz he's been acting for a while.
So like in his About Me, he says that like he broke into like the US side of things, and it took a while for him to get into European stuff, and that he was hoping to work in both. But I thought it would be nice to share a quote.
I'd love to hear a quote from this guy.
I am merely trying to be myself to the best of my knowledge, and to give the actor in me the source of truth.
That's a very actory quote, I can tell you. That I walk around saying shit like that all the time, you know, as an actor myself. Wow.
Would you like another one from?
Just one more. I want to be enlightened. I want to be transported back to doing my drama degree where I'd hear this kind of stuff all the time. Go on.
So this is the way that he opens up his profile, which on the website is given to you in English and then in German.
Okay.
I thought it would be Swiss, but you know.
Germany and Switzerland have a very special relationship that goes back.
So here are the first two sentences that he offers up. My life is a journey. I am still traveling and exploring. There are moments where I think we might fool ourselves by wanting to believe that we do know who we really are.
Beautiful. Come back in the B5 reboot, please. Please. That would be awesome. I just want to see who comes back in the B5 reboot if it actually ever happens. Well, Rachel, what are you wanting to rate this episode of B5, A Race Through Dark Places?
Okay, so this is one of the times where I'm like, damn.
Yeah, the rating system gets you, doesn't it? Of Yum being bad, Yum Yum being good.
It's Yum Yum.
Yum Yum.
I'm very happy giving it a Yum Yum.
Yum Yum.
Let's hear what we'll be talking about next time on our discussions.
On Yum Yum
5.
On the next Babylon 5.
It is the titular episode of Season 2, The Coming of Shadows, Episode 9, Season 2, and I can't wait to read the description of this. So, it goes as such. He comes in peace, but brings conflict. The arrival of the aged Centauri Emperor Turhan Bey puts rival ambassadors Malari and Jakar at the forefront of a string of schemes, murders, and misunderstandings.
Ooh.
That's it. That's the plot. So we'll be talking about the big one. It's the biggie. It's the big boy. It's the game changer. It's a Hugo Award-winning episode, The Coming of Shadows. Make sure that you come back next episode and listen to that one. Give The Coming of Shadows a watch in the meantime if you haven't already. It's a fantastic one. I can't wait to talk about it, delve into it, dive into it. You can find us in the meantime on your social media platform of choice. We're on practically all of them, although MySpace, I haven't set it up there yet. But YumYumPodcast or YumYumPod is what you can look up. We are posting on there regularly. We are engaging with people, sharing some extra little tidbits and facts and information and memes and videos and all of that great good stuff. Rachel, where can people email us at if they want to talk to us further?
YumYumPod@gmail.com.
Yes, yes, yes. All of that will be in the description of this episode. Make sure to rate and review us on your podcatcher that is allowing you to do so. We are on all of them, including we are also on YouTube. If people like listening to podcasts or watching them on YouTube, we have our YouTube page you can subscribe to as well. Rate and review us on Spotify or Apple or Podchaser. It would be, I would like it. I would just like it. It'd be nice. It would be nice to sit down and twirl my mustache and go, "Whoa, they gave us a yum yum, Rachel." Yum yum being 5 stars, of course. We don't accept yum ratings or reviews, do we?
No.
But we do accept people to support us on our Patreon. Rachel, tell us what we do on our Patreon. What's happening? What are we up to? What's happening?
We give our thoughts on general pieces of media, be that TV shows, films, or even video games. We are very close to finishing off, if not having finished off our show, Make It Stop or Make It So, where we look at the highest and lowest rated episodes of all of the old school Star Trek shows.
Yeah, we watch them at random. And then there be movies too, where we are currently going through and discussing the X-Men franchise. We're going through the X-Men movies in release date order. That includes the Wolverine and Deadpool movies, as well as New Mutants. We are working our way through them, so it's been fun. We also have a group Discord that you can be a part of if you support us on the Patreon. If you have the means to do so financially, or if you're at all inclined, look us up on there or in the description, YumYumPodcast on Patreon. A pleasure talking to you, Rachel, and a pleasure talking about B5. I think it's great to just take a moment to thank the people, the Yumlings, for supporting us and listening to us. We make the content for you, but also we would still make it anyway because we just like talking about B5, don't we? Mm-hmm. And also Rachel doesn't want to talk about Star Trek Discovery, so straight away. So that'll be coming back soon. It's coming back. Don't worry, at some point. But yeah, I just want to say thank you all for supporting us, listening to us, following us. Thank you for giving us your time. Yeah, thank you for giving us your time and support. It means a lot to us. All the kind words that have been given to us since we've started the podcast and as we plow through season 2, it's been really nice. So that is it from me and from you, Rachel. But Jakar has something to say. He didn't turn up in this episode, but he's in the wings waiting on a boat to sail in and let us know a very important thing, which is... Good eating to you. Good eating to you.